Hello there, viewers of The Glenn Show at bloggingheads.tv. This is Glenn Loury, and this is a somewhat unusual episode of The Glenn Show, which I am introducing right now. I will be talking, you will see me talking, with my son, Alden Keith Loury, his wife, my daughter-in-law, Adrienne Loury, and their two daughters, my lovely grandchildren, Alexis Loury and Ariel Loury. The occasion of this conversation is that the A-team, as they call themselves, note their names all begin with A, called to wish me a happy birthday. I, knowing that I would want to review that conversation again and again in my dotage, recorded it. We went on for much longer than we had anticipated, and the conversation delved into matters that I think are of general interest. My son Alden is the Director of Research and Evaluation at the Metropolitan Planning Council of Chicago and is very knowledgeable about public policy issues in that city. We talked about race and about politics at the national and the local level, and especially about education policy in the city of Chicago. So herewith is that conversation. Please forgive the informality of it. We did not anticipate when we had the conversation that we would be sharing it with the world, but with Alden and his family's approval and with the blessing of the curators of the Blogging Head site, we are sharing that conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Okay, so anyway.
All right.
Yeah, number 68.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still going strong.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Feeling good. Just back from Vietnam.
Wow, how was that?
It was, otherworldly amazing. It's an Asian city. I mean, this is Ho Chi Minh City. It's booming. It's bustling. It's very modern. It's a communist country. These people are not backward at all. I went to cafes and restaurants and whatnot. I saw fancy people. I stayed in a very, accommodating sort of suites hotel. It was really, really nice. Everything was cheap.
That was a plus.
Cab rides with $2 and $3, to go 15 minutes someplace.
Oh, wow.
I ate well. I met people. It was good.
Great. Okay. Did you do anything special for your birthday today? Or was that a celebration for yourself?
I've been taking it easy. I got some exercise. I didn't do too much. My phone went on the fritz, so I had to take it. I ended up with a new phone.
Yeah.
What else did I do? Collected my mail from the post office. Nothing special.
Oh, okay.
Exciting birthday fun. Getting the mail.
The night is young.
All right.
All right.
No, I'm just
All right, nobody. Yeah. Oh, don't worry about it, kiddo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's up with you guys?
Well, school starts on Monday. So
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Good.
They're excited about that.
Yeah.
And Lexi did something nice last night. So you tell probably about what you did last night.
My teacher from 6th grade invited us over. So we went over her place last night. And it was nice. It was really fun.
Yeah. So it was a good time. She got to hang out with her teacher. And the teacher just retired this year. She's 70, I think.
Oh, wow.
And she just retired. And she really took a liking to Alexis. And so she had us over for swimming and dinner. And it was just a really nice evening.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. And Ari started her dance classes this semester today.
Hey, Ari. You look sleepy, baby.
Yeah, that's really accurate.
All right. That's all very exciting.
Yeah, and
Yeah. So Adrian went back to work this past week,
yeah.
and then I've been back for a few weeks since we got back from North Carolina. So real life resumes for us on Tuesday with the girls going back.
Yeah.
So just getting ready for that. But things are good.
Yeah, Amira's good.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's doing good. And we're just here. Just here. I remember the room. I think I know exactly where you're sitting.
Oh, I'm in the chair. The chair is rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting in this alcove in the corner of my bedroom suite.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. So good. So.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture hanging on the wall behind you guys, too.
Oh,
thank
Those
you.
girls
Thank
dancing.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dancers. I like that picture. Yeah. So that's that. That's that. What's on tap for you for the rest of the year, the week, or what's going on?
Well, the thing is that classes are going to start, like you were saying. We start on Wednesday, and I have 2 classes I'm teaching this semester that's coming up. Both of them are kind of challenging.
Yeah.
One is a seminar on development studies with graduate students, and the other is a class for juniors and seniors on race and inequality in the United States.
Oh.
So, I've gotten 84 signed up for the race and inequality class.
Ah.
And, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah. It sounds like it'll be really interesting, too.
I'm going to try to make it so, and I think I got a lot of material to work with,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny
I
one.
think so.
But I know what the first 2 classes are going to be. You want to hear?
Yeah, sure.
So the first class is Can We Talk? And the second class is What is Race?
Ah.
So the
Okay.
Can We Talk is, I don't want to use the term political correctness because it's too freighted, too, loaded. But it's like, what are the various barriers to the candid exchange of ideas and information? What are the things that get in the way? And one of those things is that people might feel that they can't say something, or other people might feel that they shouldn't say something, that goes against the common opinion.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that get in the way of us talking. And what can we talk about? And what's the purpose of talking? And, can we talk? And then the what is race is like, I can give you the example. Rachel Dolezal, okay? So that's the white woman that tried to pass for being black. You know about her. So she cannot be transracial. You understand? I mean, she can't be born white and then become black.
Mm-hmm.
But Jenner,
Bruce Jenner, yeah.
Bruce Jenner can be transsexual. I mean, he can be, as it were, born a man and become a woman.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between those things? What's the difference between that you can't change your race, which is what we're saying in the case of Rachel Dolezal, and I don't want to get too absorbed in her particular case, but I'm just saying we have a feeling about that, and this completely opposite feeling that we have about the transsexual, which is that somehow the person has the right to be free, to be whatever it is that is inside of them, regardless of what their physical thing might be. So is this kind of physical thing, this thing that I've got here, which is physical in a way that's not, is it really any different from the physicality of your, sexual equipment or whatnot? But anyway, I'm not taking a position, you see, I'm just trying to say, look at this question. Isn't this interesting? So what is race really? Like that.
Oh, I would question Bruce Jenner, and I don't think that he has the, I don't know, right or whatever. He's not a woman to me. No matter whatever he does, he's not a woman to me. He's a man. So I don't know.
Well, they're getting ready to lock you up, Adrian.
Well, they just have to do that then, I guess.
That's one of those opinions that you're not supposed to have.
Well, but if I've been to the Can We Talk seminar, then it would be okay for me to have that opinion. Because it's okay for me to talk.
But that's why they call it LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
There's a T in there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But they still haven't persuaded you.
Nah, he is a man to me. He's a man. So that's just me.
Isn't that like all their dads or whatever or something?
That's the dad of all the girls. Who's now in his mind a woman. So that's just my thought.
No, I hear you. I really do. I'm basically in the same position myself, but I guess I don't feel like I have the liberty to say so.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds pretty good. I think just the first week itself, or the first topic itself, could last I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Just trying to hash through that.
First class is Thursday.
That is an interesting question. The thing I think about with Dolezal is that I think when she was kind of explaining herself, she talked about just feeling much more connected with black people, and that she wasn't like putting on airs or like this who she genuinely felt who she was. But yeah, it raises the question about, so is there something that makes you black? Is there like a definition for that where someone can say, that's who I am? And if there is there some danger in that? Is there some danger in, actually placing a very distinct, definition, to that label, and who decides what that definition is? So I think about stuff like, you're growing up and people are saying, oh, you're talking white, or you're not being black because you're doing well in school, or other things like that. And it's like, well, if that is the definition of blackness, then I don't really like that definition. But if we are to say that there is truly that can be defined, then I think it opens the door to some pretty scary possibilities. So
yeah, I hear you on that. I agree with that very much.
But I was down for Miss Dolezal. I would have given her a pass. She could carry a black card in my book. She was the head of the NAACP, wherever she was out there. So I figured, she was doing. She was playing the part. So.
Wow.
Wasn't she raising a black kid also?
Yeah, that's right.
And black women are all up in arms because she's like headlining some kind of natural hair convention or something like that, and so that has people kind of like,
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
You talking about after the controversy?
This is something very recently. Yeah. I just read somewhere.
Wow.
So before you talk about it, Google it and look it up first. But just in my passing, I read something about her, being over some natural hair seminar. And, women are like, really?
That's so deep.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, very interesting. Very interesting.
No, those are great questions to grapple with, though.
Yeah, it's going to be... But we're going to have to talk about all these bodies that are dropping on the streets of places like Chicago. I mean, that's got to be discussed.
Yeah.
You know, and the policing thing and the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that, political revolution in our midst, affirmative action, all of this has to be discussed. And I have such strong opinions, as you may know, and I mean, they're not entirely kosher,
Yeah.
So... I expect pushback from the kids and stuff, which is all good and par for the course, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of what's on my mind and what's on my plate for the immediate future. That and the presidential race, which I'm paying close attention to.
Yeah, there's you talk about good material. That entire the entire election is extremely loaded with all kinds of, interesting questions around, race and identity. And it's fascinating to kind of watch it all unfold.
Donald Trump was in this church. Wayne Jackson is his name, the pastor in Detroit. He was in the church. I just watched the 20-minute or whatever thing. It was really an interesting. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to say this. I mean, this is not pro-Trump in any way. It's just that I was really interested to see it, and I kept asking myself, what if Hillary Clinton were in this situation? How would that go? How would that feel? Because it was something, I mean, it's his shtick. It's the thing that he's selling, which is, you need jobs, America first and whatnot, and that should be for the benefit of our African Americans. He didn't say it like that, but I mean, he read a script. It was the content of the script that I found to be interesting. And, again, you're not supposed to give any credit to Trump. He's supposed to be crazy. But the issue, okay, what are we going to do about developing these communities? I mean, I'm not arguing with putting that on the agenda. I think that's okay. I mean, I really think at some point there needs to be a response to that. I mean, you can't just say, he's insincere, he's a charlatan, he's a whatever. Well, then okay, but tell me, I mean, he was in there talking about getting jobs for people and putting people back to work again. But, how you going to get that done? How you going to get that done? Tell me, discuss that. So anyway, I'm thinking heretical thoughts, as you can see.
No, I can remember when George Bush was, he had been nominated, and this is the second George Bush, and this was in 2000. And he opened up, I don't know if this was at the convention or if it was just a campaign stop, but he opened up to like there was like a black choir, and they were singing. You remember this?
No.
And
George Bush?
Yeah, George W. Bush. And it was great theater, and he kind of delivered the same kind of message. There hasn't been necessarily a relationship between the Republican Party and African Americans, but that the Republican Party was the party that had answers for the ails or the ills of the African American community in terms of jobs, and that he was going to get it done. The governor of Illinois, just when he won his election here in 2014, he got a couple of very prominent black ministers in Chicago to back and endorse him, and he was shouting the same message. Why, the Democrats have not produced for you all, and I'm a businessman. I'm a member of the conservative choice here. This is what we do. We make things happen on the economic side.
And
we get jobs. And so he hasn't made anything happen.
Absolutely nothing.
But that's the selling point. And one of the ministers was even saying the Democratic Party has taken the black vote for granted. Our communities are not demonstrably better with all of the support that we've given the Democratic Party over the years. And so it's the kind of message that I think, is part of what the Republican pitch to black America has been and is. And,
You've heard it all before. I say you've heard it all before.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's certainly in the best interest of our community to have our ears open to whoever might end up being in a position like the president or the governor or anything like that. And, we shouldn't necessarily discount someone just because they're of a particular party. And by the same token, we shouldn't automatically throw our support behind someone else because they're of a party that we've supported. Granted, I would never vote for Donald Trump. I wouldn't vote for the Republican governor of Illinois just because I just don't think those guys are worthy of my vote. But I'd be open to voting for a Republican if I thought they, were a better candidate and were, at least presenting something that I thought would be beneficial to me and my community. And I'm not all that thrilled about the Democrats either. So it's not like, I have some kind of philosophical wall to listening to a Trump or some other Republican. So I don't know. I don't think we can afford to just automatically hand over our support to somebody. So.
Okay, so I would say it's not just about who you vote for, and I certainly respect your opinion about that. It's also about what we talk about and who we talk to. And, some of these issues are controversial. Immigration. So without being a bigot or one to just draw the bridge up and not let anybody in, fundamental base level fact. There's a conflict of interest between the people who are inside and the people who are outside. Okay, if you got a situation where there's scarcity, okay, so access to all the good life of the United States of America, it's not infinite. It's scarce. So there's a boundary there. There's supposed to be a boundary there. Okay, something like that. So African Americans on the inside. So the basic ideal that we've been striving for 200 years is membership in the United States of America. That's why, with all great respect, the San Francisco 49er quarterback protest, I know what I'm supposed to say, okay? I know what I'm supposed to say, and I'm not against this young man, et cetera, and I'm not some right-wing guy that's going to burn his jersey or anything like that. I'm trying to make a much more basic point. From the Emancipation and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment through the Civil Rights Movement to the election of Barack Hussein Obama, the whole argument has been about inclusion. Inclusion in the civic enterprise, in the polity, equality, membership. Okay? So now you're going to tell me that there's no conflict of interest between people who want to be members, who are inside trying to be members, and people on the outside who are outside and want to be members? Of course there's a conflict. Now, I didn't take a position.
No.
I didn't, rain on anybody's parade. I'm just trying to live in the real world and not a make-believe world, okay? Now, the fact of the matter is, the Latinos are cleaning our clock politically. Okay? They're getting ready to determine who's going to be the next president of the United States. I heard Rachel Maddow say on television last night, the future of our country is in the Latinos' hands. That's what she said. Because she's run the numbers on all these swing states and figured out from everywhere from North Carolina to Colorado, if the Latinos don't go to the Republicans above a certain number, they lose.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, forgive me. Black people don't have any power. We can't make anything happen. With great respect to John Lewis, the congressman from Atlanta, with great respect to a hero of the Civil Rights Movement, he's a parody. A sit-in on the floor of the Congress to try to get people to put down weapons. With great respect to this man, he has no power. Nancy Pelosi doesn't care what he says. He can't change anything. So, to me, I don't care who anybody votes for. I want the conversation to change. Let me say one more thing. Affirmative action, we deserve it, blah, blah, etc. If we are dependent on affirmative action to get anywhere in America 50 years after the Civil Rights Movement, we're in a hole, and we're pulling the hole in behind us. If you're going to rely on reparations for slavery for your children and your grandchildren, you're a fool. That's not the answer to black people's problems. We had better get busy. End of sermon. But that's the message that I think needs to come. No Democrat is ever going to say that, Alden.
No, I mean, I hear you. I mean, I don't think that party politics has served African Americans. I don't think party politics has served America very well, quite frankly. What black people need is for black people to get their shit together. And it has to come from within. It has to be sustained from within. It has to be funded from within. It's just not going to happen any other way. And I think the reason why we've seen such stagnation as a community is because we have essentially kind of put our hopes in a political system and a political party that threw some bones our way when we desperately needed some bones, and we've just never forgotten that and felt like, okay, well, this is the answer, and if things aren't happening, it's because we aren't going to the polls enough. We aren't, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think the answer is there, and probably it will never be there because we just don't have the numbers to take over that party. We have the numbers. I think if we use them better, we could influence the party, but we will never, as a community, as a race, be in control of the Democratic Party, and therefore we will always be getting whatever it is that the party feels that they have to give us in order to kind of keep us close and keep them in power. Because without black folks, the Democratic Party over the last, well, I would say the last 40, 50, 60 years would be the runner-up. The clear runner-up. I mean, black people have helped buoy the Democratic Party for decades. And I don't know what we have to show for it. Now, that's not to say that we should all of a sudden vote Republican. I'm just saying that we haven't influenced the party from within effectively enough for the party to truly deliver what we need. And maybe to the point you're making, we were only going to get so far relying on whatever the political system could do for black folks anyway, that ultimately what has to happen is there are building blocks that have to be constructed on the ground level in our communities to help us get the kind of schools that we want, to help us get the kind of safety we want, to help us get the kind of economic structure that we want. We can't legislate all of those things. We have to create those things on our own, and we haven't done that.
Yeah. I read this book recently by J.D. Vance. He's a graduate of Yale Law School. He's Hillbilly Elegy. Hillbilly Elegy. It's actually become a bestseller. It's a memoir. He's born in Kentucky, raised in Southwest Ohio, and from hill country Kentucky people background. That's his background. And he kind of is reflecting on what this small town that he grew up in Southwest Ohio. It's like an exurb of Cincinnati, but I can't remember the name of it. But in any case, it was like auto or whatever kind of manufacturing jobs there, and then the jobs went away and whatnot. And a lot of the hillbilly white people, they ended up on drugs and with messed up lives. He tells about his own life, and it's his mother basically is a drug addict, and he didn't know who his father was, and men were coming in and out, and grandparents were pathological, and everybody had an excuse for why they weren't doing anything and whatnot. And I mean, he's just describing his own background, but a lot of what he has to say, what kind of reminds me of stuff. I mean, it's kind of like poor white people and folks that's struggling and getting a half-ass education and not getting jobs or anything like that. They have a lot in common. They have a lot in common with black people.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to make that kind of a connection, if you could make that kind, because I'm pretty sure this guy Vance, he might not himself be a Trump voter, although I wouldn't put it past him. He's a Marine veteran. He went right into the Marine Corps after high school, and then he went to Ohio State, and then he ended up at Yale Law School, and he didn't know what fork to use. You know what I'm saying? He didn't know, he didn't know anything about all these fancy people in New Haven and this high society kind of stuff. And I mean, it took me back. I mean, I kind of know what it felt like to go from Chicago to graduate school in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1972. I didn't know which fork to use or, that there was any other wine other than the sweet plum wine that I was used to drinking, and stuff like that. So I kind of identify with this young man. But anyway, I don't know. I'm just saying, class as another factor, and I mean, this is why I think the identity question is so interesting, because we're making choices about what dimensions of our identity that we're going to put the most emphasis on.
Right.
And, co-raciality, the fact that somebody else is the same race as me, obviously it does connect me to a certain extent, but it's not the only thing that connects me to other people. And, it's broader ways of thinking about it.
No, that's true. A funny thing, remember when, I can't remember if this was Romney or, no, it was, who ran last time? No, Romney was last time, right?
Romney was the last time.
Was it
47%?
Whenever we had Joe the plumber, whenever that guy was around, I can't remember. He was some working class stiff.
Oh, yeah, Joe the plumber?
Yeah, and that's right, he became like this critic of Obama. I don't know if he asked him a question at a debate or something, or some kind of town hall or something.
Yeah.
But he had like his own 15 minutes. But my thought was, Joe the plumber, if he's a Republican, he's in the wrong party. I mean, I thought he had, even when he just talked about his life and everything, I thought, well, I'm not sure if those same core values are the things that the Republican Party, at least in practice, really cares about. And so while he's blasting Obama, it's like Obama probably would be a more representative president for him than Mitt Romney would be. But it seems like the Republicans have a lot of those very, lower middle class, lower class, working class white folks in their camp. And I wonder if they're in their camp because of some element of who they believe the Democratic Party is bolstered by. And it's like, well, I don't want to associate with those people, but they may very well have a lot in common with those people. So I don't know, but I mean, to what you were saying, maybe at some point there will be somebody out there who will be able to effectively communicate to people who are much more alike in terms of their economic status, in terms of the lives in which they've lived, and maybe they're in West Virginia, and maybe they're in the slums of New York City, or they were in the housing projects in Chicago, but they will feel some commonality in that, hey, we've been out here busting our butt, we can't get ahead, and when we try to tell people what it is that we need, we don't get what we need from the folks who are representing us. And I have more in common with these folks who I thought were my mortal enemies, but I've come to understand that we all kind of are going through the same struggle, and we need somebody who's going to be out there fighting for us. And maybe there's a way to coalesce, these disparate groups. But yeah, the whole thing about identity might be the part that makes people incapable of seeing how they actually do have much more in common, because we have grown accustomed to thinking about our race or our region or whatever as the ways in which we identify ourselves, and maybe we need to be shown that there's a different way for us to think about who we should be aligned with, or who we have much in common with.
So perhaps Donald Trump, you would say perhaps as an understatement, is not the appropriate vehicle. Though, I don't know, there's Trump, the man, the history, and everything, and then there's Trump. I have inverted commas here, and this is this sort of virtuality. I mean, this kind of open sort of potential to be created or something like that. And I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not trying to talk anybody into voting, including myself, into voting for Donald Trump. I'm trying to think about change somehow, and how new possibilities get introduced. And I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think I was thinking about writing something that says something like, it's time to take Donald Trump seriously. And what that would mean would be, let me distinguish between the characterological, who is this person, do they get their hands on the nuclear code, isn't he a maniac kind of thing, and the, I want to almost say political at some level. I mean, these things are larger than any particular person. If I say there needs to be a border, I'm going to just go back to that issue again. I'm not talking about race now. I'm talking about Trump, the idiotic, appropriate object of ridicule and derision and contempt, and Trump with the inverted commas, which is somehow this moment, this kind of conflict of sort of energies and tensions that's at play. I mean, for example, the coastal elites, the media I'm sorry, you all. I'm keeping you up past your bedtime, Alexis. By the way, Alexis, you very beautiful. I love your hair. Did you hear me, baby? I love your hair.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I'm maybe I am trying to persuade myself of something. But I really don't want to see these issues just sloughed out. Okay, charter schools. I know y'all gonna get mad at me. I don't know. Maybe you won't get mad at me. But more generally, somehow creating more opportunity through educational development for African American and other people living in cities. I mean, I know I'm talking to people who are African Americans who live in cities, and I listen very carefully to what all you all had to say about your children's education and the hoops that you were jumping through and the provisions that were being made and the thought that was going into it and the effort that it required in order to secure educational opportunity for your child in the public school system. And you all are very resourceful people. So a family that doesn't have that kind of resource, I mean, what's going to happen for them? So opening up the system in ways that give them more possibilities. Okay, so now we're going to get into an argument about choice and vouchers and teachers and unions and whatnot. But I just think it needs to be shaken up. I think the system needs to be shaken up. Business as usual, So I don't know. You're going to probably tell me about Governor Rauner and underfunding of schools and Rahm Emanuel and the politics of educational and whatnot, and I'm listening. So
No, I mean
the shaking up hasn't resulted in any gains.
I don't have a philosophical opposition to charter schools. I think that charter schools can be very useful in providing greater options. I think one of the arguments that was made when the city first kind of opened up charter options in Chicago was that these were going to be testing grounds for new and innovative ways for education. And I thought actually that would be perhaps very helpful, particularly for African American children, because I think there does need to be a very kind of different approach in educating poor black children. I don't know if you can walk into those schools and think about education the same way you would if you were out in Winnetka or Highland Park or some of those other places. So there was a part of me that was hopeful that, okay, maybe they will get into some interesting things. And there's this one school that was created by, it's called Urban Prep. It's a charter school. It's a high school. It's got like 3 or 4 campuses now. But the guy who started that school taught at Hales Franciscan, which was, I don't know if you remember, but it was right on Cottage Grove.
I do remember it, yeah.
And so I got a chance to interview him when he was at Hales Franciscan, and he talked about the power of, because it was all male school at that time, and pretty much all of the staff were black men. I mean, it was very deliberately built that way. And he thought that that was the key to their success, that these young boys were being taught by black men, and that there was a connection that those male teachers and male counselors and male principal and assistant principal, that they could make with these boys that nobody else could, and that hadn't been part of their education up until that point. And the results that he was showing, multiple consecutive years of everybody who graduated from that high school being admitted to a college somewhere, or at least being accepted into a college somewhere. And when he started Urban Prep Charter, he continued that same success. Now, it's not perfect over there, because those kids, when they get to college, they're struggling more so than their peers are. But in terms of education in Chicago for young black men, I'm not sure you can point to a greater success story than what this guy did when he was at Hales and what he's continued at Urban Prep. So if we were going to be doing more things like that, great for charters. What I think the political leadership in Chicago has used charters for is not that. It's just a way to chip away at the union. It's a way to privatize public education, to open these corporate entities into these vast public education dollars. And it's also been a way for the political establishment in Chicago, who has no clue about how to educate poor black children, poor black and brown children. This is a way for them to essentially say, hey, we're doing something and we're gaining some success. But ultimately what they're doing is they're using the charters and the selective enrollment public schools to siphon the best students in the city into the same schools, and then therefore for those schools to perform better than their neighborhood counterparts who have essentially the worst students in the city by virtue of a whole bunch of reasons, but not necessarily because the schools in and of themselves are just poorly managed or poorly run, or the teachers there are any worse. They're just the students who are most challenged are in those schools. So that's my opposition to, it's not to charters necessarily, it's just to the way the folks who are in leadership in the city of Chicago, from Richard Daley and now to Rahm Emanuel, have used charters. And so that's my thing, because there's a ton of money that goes into charters, aside from the public dollars, or private dollars, and those dollars could have been going into the public system all this time from corporate interest, and that's never happened. I don't say it's never happened.
Maybe they're making their investment where they think there's going to be a return. Can you point to?
But the charters aren't doing. They're not really doing any better than the neighborhood schools. I mean, there've been a number of measures to that.
Well, wait a minute. You can't have it both ways. You just said that they were siphoning off the best students. I mean,
they are the charter schools that are doing very well. There's a Latino outfit that has opened up maybe about 14 or 15 charter schools in town. Their schools have done relatively well. There's another network of charter schools called the Noble Street Charters, and they've got like a dozen or so schools. Those two networks of charter schools are doing relatively well.
I would somewhat disagree in that.
You don't think Noble's doing well?
No, I think they're doing well. I don't think they're necessarily taking the best students.
Oh, no? Oh, okay. Well, that's been,
just generally speaking,
that's been my take on some of the charters that are doing well. Because you talked about us being resourceful. I think the parents who are most aggressive and active about their children's education are the ones who are getting their kids into the better schools, and their children are by virtue of being in homes where education has really been a priority, those kids are typically better performing students. And those students are going to the better schools. And so, I mean, this neighborhood school right around the corner from us, if we sent Lexi and Ari there, they would do great. But there might only be like maybe 3 or 4 other Lexis and Aris in that school. The rest of the kids in that school are kids who have a whole bunch of challenges in terms of their education. And many of the neighborhood schools in Chicago look like that. So that's not to say that the charters have all the best students. That's not to say that all the best students only go to charters. What I'm saying is that there are charter schools that are doing well, and I think the reason why they're doing well is because they have better prepared students, not because necessarily the education that they're receiving at those charters is some incredibly better educational product necessarily than what's happening in the neighborhood schools. And I firmly believe that. I haven't seen any research yet to make me think that there's something that's happening in those charter schools or even the selective enrollment schools that is leaps and bounds better than the education that's happening in the neighborhood schools.
Okay.
The main difference is the quality of the students out there.
So this is what Roland Fryer did in Houston. He got the Unified School District in Houston, Texas, to turn over to him about a dozen schools. I'm not kidding. He could hire and fire principals. Okay? He did a random assignment study in which some of the families were sending their kids to schools that he was running. I'm not kidding. They were actually running these schools. The Ed Labs out of Harvard University was running these schools. They had control over curriculum, over the length of the school day, over the hiring of teachers and principals. He implemented, I'm not saying him personally, in collaboration with the Houston School District and with the incumbent teachers and principals with whom he was working. It wasn't like all the teachers got fired, but teachers were fired. In collaboration with them, he implemented a quasi-KIPP Academies formula in terms of emphasis on, we could go down the list of what would constitute the sort of formulaic knowledge power program type charter thing in these schools. And then over 2 or 3 years, I think there were several cohorts, measured, and of course they're using test scores, student progress and so forth and so on. So what he finds is complicated, and I can't actually give an accurate full summary of it, but it's basically a positive treatment effect for the kids that were in the schools where he was implementing this quasi-KIPP-like protocol formula for how those schools were run and what those kids were being taught. So it's just not true that there isn't any evidence out there, because there's a lot of evidence. I'm
That's
not
evidence for his school.
Pardon?
I said that's evidence for his school. I think we have to be careful about lumping charter schools in one bucket and lumping traditional public schools in another bucket, and saying that because it's a charter, this is what you can expect in terms of the practice and the philosophy behind education there, and that if it's a traditional public school, that those things aren't going to be happening there.
You're saying there aren't any problems in the traditional public schools? Except for the fact that some of them have to take the kids that have a lot of issues, and therefore they're overly burdened. I mean, I just want to understand.
There are definite problems in the traditional public schools, but there are definite problems in the charter schools. Here's something to keep in mind: our children have never attended a traditional public school, not one. Well, at least these two. Amira was in up until 5th grade, she was in a traditional public school. But Lexi and Ari have never been in Lexi was in a charter school from kindergarten through 5th grade when we pulled her out, when one of her own teachers said, hey, look, she's not going to be served well here. And Ari was there for her kindergarten year, and that was that. So I'm just saying, it's a at least from our experience here in Chicago, it's a real hodgepodge. Now there are certainly some very core issues with regard to traditional public schools, with regards to the power of the union in terms of being able to have control over the teachers, and if teachers can stay and they can go and so on and so forth. But even with that point being said, the city of Chicago has laid waste to thousands of teachers over the past dozen years or so, contract or no contract.
This summer.
So for the folks in Chicago to say we need to promote charters because we don't have control and we can't get rid of bad teachers, well, that's hogwash. In the city of Chicago, they've had their turnaround school policy and a bunch of other things that they've done. and more so lately because of budget cuts. Well, they've been able to purge teachers with no.
Are those teachers not laid off based on seniority?
No, I don't think it was.
Did they actually make evaluative judgments about the quality of teachers before they decided who to let go?
I don't think so.
It wasn't based on the ratings or anything like that. I don't think it was a ratings based. I don't know exactly what it was, but this summer it was like 1,000.
Yeah, and it could have been one way. It could have been on a school by school basis. So if certain, particularly schools on the south and west sides have been losing enrollment very much because the neighborhoods have been clearing out, and as a result, those schools just don't get the kind of funding that they used to. So those individual principals would have had to make some choices about who would get cut. And so the system as a whole wasn't necessarily saying, here's our student body, here's our collection of teachers, we got to get rid of 1,000 of them, let's rate them, or let's line them up by seniority and let's get rid of them. I think in each and every individual school, the principals had to make choices about who they kept and who they lost. And that could have been each principal could have had a different way of thinking about that.
Their budgets were cut like 27% or something crazy like that for the upcoming school year.
But because of the financial pressures, some of the more senior teachers and perhaps some of the more experienced and better teachers might have been ones who actually got cut because they cost too much.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think factored into the decisions also. But yeah, there was no one. There was no kind of protocol in terms of how the teachers were dismissed. I think those decisions were left to the principals, who were making them, based on those factors, I'm sure, but also based on financial factors also. So all that is to say that there are some charter schools that are doing some really good things in Chicago, and they should be upheld and funded and supported. Then there are some charter schools who aren't really doing much of anything. Keep in mind that when the city of Chicago puts money out for charters, they get all kinds of applications from quackpots and other folks who are just trying to get in on the largesse. It's billions of dollars that we're talking about here. The CPS was $6 billion a year institution, and a lot of that money goes to those schools. So when the charter is available, the city is essentially funding that charter. So if you're running a business, and there's no better business model, if I make the cut, if I get selected, all of my operating costs are pretty much taken care of. And there have been a lot of people who have no business being in the education business who have gone after that money and who have won that money. And the charter contracts to start are 5 years long, so the city can't get rid of those charters until at least 5 years in. But the city has, to their credit, cut off some charters who haven't been making the grade.
Well, what I'm seeing is a bell-shaped curve, which is the distribution of how the charters perform. And, I'm not surprised that the left tail of that will go below a line that is, where you would want to cut them off. They don't all have to be perfect. The question is whether opening up the system on the whole, all things considered, improve the opportunities for the students. And if you can't get rid of bad teachers, which is what you just got through saying, within the system, one way to give those kids more opportunities is to open it up. What did I say that was wrong?
I didn't say you said anything was wrong. I guess what I'm saying is that simply opening up is not I don't think that's necessarily a strategy to say we're going to open the doors to any and everybody who wants to participate in public education. We're going to open it up and we're going to pick many of them, and that is going to deal with our issues. Because the problem is still that if we're saying that, and I'll grant this to you, we have problems with the public schools that we already have. So if our strategy is to open the doors to provide more choice, and we're not dealing with the issues that we've got in those schools, and the union's power in protecting teachers is a part of that issue. But we were saying in Chicago, the union doesn't have that much power because they've been losing teachers left and right over the past 15 years. What I'm saying is that choice perhaps can be a part of that, especially if the choice that you're creating is to bring people who have innovative ideas about education in. I think the city of Chicago has abused that choice by giving that power and authority and that privilege to a bunch of institutions that had no business doing it. And then they set up a system where they just, 5 years is way too long for somebody to have a guaranteed contract before you say, we're going to, and there were calls to try to extend that to 10 years, saying that, well, these schools really need 10 years.
So now you're arguing about the kind of the details of the regulation. They should have stricter standards. They shouldn't allow whatever. I mean, you haven't said that the bulk of them and on the whole. And I mean, so, okay, then
I don't have a opposition to charters. I don't think that if we talk about what's wrong with public education and how we fix public education, I don't think saying providing more choice is the fix. I would put that maybe 12th or 13th on the list. I think there are a whole host of other things that have to be done within the schools that we've always had, with the ways in which we've taught. Unless we have
Why is that? I mean, why is that? Why can't I think about the U.S. Post Office versus Federal Express and UPS or something like that? Why can't I think about taxi medallions versus Uber? Why does it have to always be the same? Well, I mean, what's the investment that we have in the conventional organization of education?
What I'm saying is that the solution to our struggles with public education is not just in some free market philosophy and saying, well, let's just open it up and allow everyone else to participate, and that will solve our problem. I don't think that's a sufficient response.
Okay,
I'm not saying that it can't be part of what we do.
Well, because that's all I'm saying. I'm certainly not making any claim about anything. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but I guess I have a suspicion that business as usual is not getting it done. Opening things up, it seems to me to be something you'd want to do. That it would solve all the problems? No, it wouldn't. I mean, but let me give another point. You said that the kids that were doing well would leave if you gave them an out. You spoke even of your own kids as not having ever gone to a traditional school. And I assume that in part is because of your choice.
Right.
So what's wrong? Quite apart from performance, quite apart from does it solve any institutional problem? Does it make education on the whole better? What's wrong with giving people an opting out? What's wrong with giving them an option to get out, to get to something?
There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is that what you're giving them when they are opting out, what it is that they're opting out from is still operating as a school. Those doors are going to open on Tuesday, just like the doors to Lexi and Ari's school. There are going to be kids that are going to go in there every day, and guess what? None of those kids' education is going to be any better because there's another choice out there. Those kids are still going to these schools that have existed in these neighborhoods for decades. And charter on the other side of school or any selective enrollment high school or grammar school is going to make their education better in the school they're in. So what I'm saying is that as a part of creating the Whitney Youngs and the Walter Paytons and all of that, and the Noble Street charter schools and the Perspectives charter schools and the other charter schools, the girls went to Providence, St. Mel, Inglewood charter school. That's great. And for parents who want the discipline that was put in place at the Inglewood charter school that the girls went to, if that's what they want and they feel their kids need, then great. That option is there for them. But the kids who are going to Bass, where Perkins Bass, where Adrian teaches, or Amos Alonzo Stagg right around the corner here, a school that we would love to send the girls to because it's right around the corner, but in good conscience we can't. Those kids aren't getting any better education because those charters exist. So that's my point. Charters, fine, that's cool, that's great. But what about these other kids? And the bulk of kids in CPS, the bulk of black and brown kids in CPS, are in these schools. And so while we've been creating this fantastic network of choice, we haven't given these kids much of an option within the schools that they have to go to. And it's not just because they got crappy teachers. I would tell you that they don't have crappy teachers. I would tell you that those are the best, most dedicated teachers in the city, because the job that they have is a hard job. Because the kids that they're working with are kids who, are there because they got to be there. They may not necessarily want to be there. They don't know how to learn. These are kids with a lot of issues. They got issues at home. They got issues, and they've had issues in the schools. And so the teachers who are there, and there are some teachers in these schools who care more about the kids and the education they're providing than the paycheck they got, than the union protection that they get. None of that is a real issue for them. They just want to have the best resources and the best surroundings and circumstances in which to work, and they don't want to be judged by the fact that their kids are only meeting 20 or 30% of the nationwide median, because last year they were at 14%. So they're getting better, and we're making inroads, but this is a very challenging population to work with. And if you judge me based on that, then yeah, maybe it's going to look to the rest of the world that I'm a crappy teacher. But
well, I mean, I'm not persuaded. I hear you. It's kind of an awful argument in a way, isn't it? Putting it on the kids. I mean, they had a lot of issues. Their home life was disorganized. Okay, maybe it was, and maybe you're asking too much of the school. I mean, and maybe, quote, the problem, whatever we want to conceptualize the problem as here, is not, even though it's education that we're interested in, is not mainly about the school as such. It's about what the kids bring into the school building or something like that. You say there are no crappy teachers or whatever. I
didn't say there were no crappy teachers. What I'm saying is that
I know I can't get rid of them if there are. Anyway,
I think that's an overblown. I think that's an overblown issue by the folks who have become enemies of teachers unions in this country. I don't know. I'm not saying that the same way that it's difficult to.
Are you going to let me test the teacher to find out what she knows or he doesn't know about whatever it is they're teaching? Can I test them? Or is that unfair?
That is not unfair, but you know what? The unions aren't going to go for that because the unions feel so besieged that the testing is just opening a door for their membership to be attacked.
Okay, can I bring 10,000 retired military officers who are 45 or 50 years old and want to have a second career into the teacher corps in your city? Can I bring 10,000 retired military officers who want to take up a new career? Can I get a foundation to give me $1 billion?
You probably could.
And then bring 10,000 retired military officers in to teach in your schools. You think the unions are going to like that?
No, the unions won't like that at all.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
I mean, the unions have their own self-interest. I'm not saying that self-interest
let me just get basic. Can I have an all-boys school?
There are some all-boys schools here in town. I mean, the Urban Prep Charter is an all-boys school. That's a charter school. Now, I would have given CPS a whole lot of credit if CPS had converted one of their neighborhood schools to being an all-boys school. There's nothing, and to me, that's the whole fallacy of this whole, the whole charter argument when CPS first brought it to bear, because they said, what we're doing, we're not trying to attack the union. We're not giving up on our neighborhood schools. We just want to have some testing ground to try new approaches to education. Well, this one model has taken off. They're having great success. And again, I'm not saying that they're perfect, but they've shown a lot of progress. They've done a lot of really good things. Why do we not see other all boys schools on the south and west sides? Why did they not convert Fenger especially after Darian Albert got killed within blocks of finger? Why didn't they convert CVS? Or why didn't they convert Inglewood High School, which urban prep was housed at Inglewood High School when they closed Inglewood High School down? It's like you could have gotten all the boys from Inglewood to be in the same building. You could have gotten rival factions, the GDs and the BDs and the Vice Lords. You could have got all of those guys in the school together. And maybe you'd have had some brawls or whatever, but you would have had them in the same place. You could have had men working with them in the model of urban prep. And you could have got them to work on those challenges. Conflict resolution, restorative justice, the whole nine. Let's make it work. Let we get these boys to understand that when they talk about turf in their neighborhood, whether it's to sell drugs or just to pump their chest, it's like, no, here's your turf. But guess what? This turf you got to share with these guys you've called your enemies, because we want you to understand that you're not enemies. You know, we're all Inglewood High School together. We didn't see that. We didn't see that at all. We didn't see all of the things that supposedly are working in these charter schools. We don't see any real constructive conversation happening about how that needs to be, spread throughout the system, throughout the district. It's like we got two separate school districts happening in Chicago. Your charters and your selective enrollments, and then your traditional neighborhood schools. And on some level, I feel like that's kind of the way the brass wants it. So I'm sorry for on my soapbox.
No, it was all good. It was very educational to me to hear you talk about schools in Chicago, and thanks for putting up with my curmudgeonly skepticism.
No.
Thanks for the call. I think we should probably call it a night, huh?
I'll do this on that. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, the girls are down for the count, so. Did you hear that?
Yeah, the girls are down for the count. It was really a pleasure to see you and talk to you, Alden.
Same here, Dad. Same here. Adrian, I think she's trying to get some pajamas on Ari. She said, the girl said, good night, Poppy.
Yeah, good night, Poppy. It's all good. I love it. Thank you. All right, so we'll talk again soon, huh?
Yes. Adrian yelled out again. She said, thank you again, and thank you indeed. We are deeply touched and incredibly grateful. And, that it was a truly wonderful blessing. So we want to express our gratitude, our deepest gratitude. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, really. Okay, take care. I'll see you later.
All right, Dad. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.